I am the president of the College Democrats at Weber State University, Ethan Bishop, and I thought I would dedicate today to debunking this piece of propaganda that has literally been dropped, on my doorstep, so to speak. They literally put it in the door of my home, as well as many others. I actually went to a canvassing event for our local, amazing state representative, Rosemary Lesser. And there they were talking about how, oh yeah, this guy who may or may not be affiliated with Jill Koford's campaign, these flyers have been left everywhere. And it's actually kind of funny because me and my girlfriend, we have a bad habit of getting DoorDash and that kind of thing. We don't do it all that often, but it was funny because we got the DoorDash. We saw who we thought was the driver getting in his car and leaving, but then we saw someone else coming up, and that they were like dropping something off. So we thought, wait, are they the DoorDash people? So then, the guy literally, and I think he's just some white guy with a buzz cut. It doesn't look like he'd be much older than me, and he literally, stuck this in the door, and then he ran away. Like he legit ran away, and I'm like, really, dude? You're not gonna stay? You're not gonna have, at least the courage to just speak to the person you're dropping off propaganda to? Because let me tell you, if he would have stayed there and I would have, came out and I would have absolutely questioned him, and he would have gotten absolutely obliterated, because this stuff is nonsense. I looked into it literally, or not every single point, because some of them are just kind of dumb and not even worth mentioning. Basically every single thing he puts in here, this guy Brad Barrowes or however you say it, literally every single thing he says that I've looked up is either misrepresented or an outright lie, how he puts it. So yeah, with all that being said, the first, part of it is taxes. So he says, on every bill that I know of since 2021 where there was a proposed tax cut, Rosemary has voted against it. In 2022, there was SB 59. In 2023, there were HB 54, HB 294, HB 301, and SJR 10 that all aimed to cut taxes. Rosemary voted against all of these bills. In 2023, SB 260 aimed to allow municipalities to increase sales taxes. Rosemary voted in favor of this bill. So let's go into SJR 10. So this is the amendment that put Amendment A on the 2024 ballot. I actually filled out my ballot today, and I saw it on there, except the Utah State Supreme Court, they rejected this ballot amendment. So even though it's still on the ballot because the ballots are already printed, this was I think this ruling came just within the last 2 weeks. You could still vote for it, but every single vote for it is void. It's not going to go into effect. And that's because there were requirements for constitutional amendments, which have to be passed by the voters, which has to be published in the newspapers in a timely period so people can actually see and learn about what they're going to vote for. I think rules as far as that goes should be tightened up to where it needs to be in plain English so any normal person reading it can understand it. That's not even the requirement. It's just that you have to let them know about it, even if in some kind of confusing way. And yeah, they even failed to do that, which is why it was voided. And, Rosemary Lesser talked about this in the town hall we did with her, as well as Angela Choberka and Stacey Bernal, who I think you guys all should watch that and support their candidacies. They're just great, local candidates out of Weber County. And what he's saying here, how SJR 10 or Senate Joint Resolution 10 would lower taxes. I think he's talking about how literally on the ballot referendum, which this put on the ballot, it says that, if this resolution passes with the Utah voters, this will eliminate the tax on food, which Rosemary Lesser supports. Now, the thing is, they literally tied it with, the idea that they can use income tax for other things, like, for example, education. That's great, etc. But when we have these, stupid policies like school vouchers that Governor Cox is all about, just helping wealthy people go to their rich schools or send their kids there, and all these other things that Utah wants to do, spend so much money, just on farmers who misappropriate water. They grow so much alfalfa. They torture and murder animals in animal agriculture. They use all this money for that at the expense of the Great Salt Lake. And they do so many other things. They try to fight the federal government on matters where the federal government has supremacy, which is what we're going to talk about in a few moments. So it's like the reason why she opposed that bill is because it was tied to the Utah state government, which is a far-right echo chamber, using that money for whatever they want. They want to use it to build more billionaires' houses. Okay, they want to use it to give tax incentives to, rich people to build, affordable homes, which actually are $300,000, $400,000 instead of $500,000. Like, that makes a huge difference, and that's actually in reach for normal Utah families. It's absolutely disgusting. And this income tax that this amendment would have, misappropriated, it's usually, put towards public education and programs for children and people with disabilities. The concern was, without these protections, all these tax revenue is going to be used for horrible things that the far-right legislature wants it to. So, that's why she opposed that bill that put this on the ballot, which eventually was stricken down by the Utah Supreme Court anyway. So the rest of the bills mentioned that would have, allegedly decreased taxes for ordinary Americans, such as HB 54, HB 294, HB 301, all of which are from 2023. All of these bills would have primarily aided the rich. For example, one of the proposals from Utah Republicans was to lower the income tax by percentage, but this would primarily benefit higher income individuals rather than the middle and working classes. And this is because we have a progressive tax system. If you say, okay, what was it? I think it was like 4.8 something down to 4.65. It's like, yeah, so since we have a progressive tax system, obviously if you make more money, more of your income is going to be taxed. And this is how it should be. If you're making more, you can contribute more. And if you're poor and you're struggling to make ends meet, you shouldn't be, expected to pay for, all these, well, first of all, the ridiculous programs that the far-right legislature wants to put in place, but also, you should be able to take your money. You should have a tax cut, and that is why that is the Democratic policy. That's many of Kamala Harris's policies, the child tax credit, which under Joe Biden in the first 2 years before it was ended by the MAGA Republicans and a conservative Democrat named Joe Manchin, that cut child poverty in half. And Kamala Harris wants to expand that child tax credit, $6,000 tax credit for the first year of a child's life. A $50,000 deduction, for small businesses and that kind of thing. All of these wonderful things are primarily through tax cuts. So Democrats don't oppose tax cuts. We oppose tax cuts for the wealthy. And to go back to what I said, I kind of rambled a little bit. So if you are making so much money and it's a percentage tax, so they lower the percentage by just a little bit. So the normal Utahn, they're not really going to see any deduction in their taxes. Who is going to see a big deduction is the rich, who are already paying so much more. Those percentages actually do make a big difference, especially when 4% and some change, of millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands even, all these kinds of things. That's so much different compared to someone making, 25,000, a year or something like that. So it's absolutely ridiculous that they, that is kind of framed like this. What Republicans want is socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor. And also, and this is another point which I heard Rosemary actually say at this canvassing event, if the Republican supermajority wanted to cut our taxes, how would a representative from the super minority thwart that? Okay, how would she prevent them from cutting your taxes? Okay, the fact is, they are not actually committed to cutting your taxes. They're committed to helping the rich and their rich friends. And it's absolutely disgusting. So let's talk about another bill that was mentioned, which is SB 260. So SB 260 in 2023 was another bill mentioned that allegedly would allow municipalities to increase sales taxes, which Rosemary voted for. The only problem with this claim is that SB 260 targets counties of the first class, meaning counties with populations of over 1 million. And Salt Lake County is literally the only county in Utah that has this population size. Since Weber County does not fall into this category, it's classified as a second-class county. The bill's provisions that allow a portion of local option sales and use taxes to fund public transit loans or projects only affect Salt Lake County. So it doesn't impose new taxes on Weber County. It literally only affects Salt Lake County because that is the only county in Utah that has such a high population. And the reason why she voted for this is because Salt Lake is a much bigger city. They need more tax money for public transit. And if I lived in Salt Lake, you're already saving money. You don't need to buy a car or whatever. I think that's a good investment. And I would agree with paying more taxes for that if I lived in Salt Lake because it makes more sense. Now in Weber County, that wouldn't make as much sense. We don't have as robust public transportation. But I do support more public transportation in Weber County, and so does Rosemary Lesser. And it absolutely needs to be put in place. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to come from an increased tax on Weber County. That's just a straw man fallacy that Republicans want to do and put out there as just a boogeyman to stop people from voting for people like Rosemary Lesser, who actually have their head on their shoulders, unlike some other people who shall not be named for this portion. So, let's move on. So transgenderism. So this guy actually says, wherever you stand on transgenderism, there are two vulnerabilities that are introduced into society by allowing people to identify as transgender. Okay, so here's the first problem. If he is saying that this is in the political sphere, this is outright fascism and literally targeting the marginalized communities. Let me say this again. Wherever you stand on transgenderism, there are two vulnerabilities that are introduced into society by allowing people to identify as transgender. He doesn't think that people should be able to identify as transgender. Now, what is that called? That's called authoritarianism. That's called fascism. That's called tyrannical government. That's called, someone who probably got nodded off by, the Jill Koford campaign to put this around. And this is probably what she believes. So these are his reasons. He says they are A, nefarious males exploiting transgenderism as a way of gaining access to women-only spaces, and B, biological males competing against biological females in sports. So here's the issue, and this is a great point that Stacey Bernal pointed out at the town hall we had just on Monday night, which is, trans men are men, trans girls are girls, and when you have a bill that makes it so these trans men will go into girls' bathrooms and these trans girls will go into boys' bathrooms, you are doing exactly what you tried to prevent. Because now people who especially most of the time, you very much cannot tell that they are trans. Okay, this idea, you can always tell, that's such a transphobic, piece of crap that people just try to espouse out there to basically ridicule and bully people and say, you're disgusting for how you look. You don't look like the gender you identify as. Okay, this is absolutely ridiculous. You're going to have people going into bathrooms who you would think is a cisgendered person who doesn't look like they are supposed to be in that bathroom. And this could cause more issues. This could cause hate crimes, with people going into bathrooms where, other people might think, oh, why are you in this bathroom? You look like a man. Why are you in the girl's bathroom? Or even you look like a girl. Why are you in the boy's bathroom? It will lead to absolutely terrible things. And the other ridiculous thing about it is it's already illegal to sexually assault, or I think they say ogling women or whatever. Yeah, so I mean, it's absolutely disgusting, and it's already illegal to sexually assault women. So what trans person would be waiting for a bill that lets them go into a bathroom to then commit something extremely illegal, more illegal than what has just been criminalized? So this is also what it says: nefarious males exploiting transgenderism as a way of gaining access to women-only spaces. If a guy just wanted to ogle women, he could exploit transgenderism as a way of gaining access to women-only spaces to ogle women. This could happen in a locker room, at school, or in a gym, or in a bathroom. Hey, how about we increase security and make sure that this isn't happening in schools, and we can also make sure that people like you aren't bullying and committing hate crimes and spreading discrimination and hate against our most vulnerable communities that make up a fraction of a percentage of the Utah population. Absolutely disgusting. To protect HB 257 in 2024 aimed to protect women from such a vulnerability, and Rosemary voted against the bill. Jill, on the other hand, thinks that protecting women trumps the other factors in the situation and would have voted yes on this bill. Right, so first of all, he speaks on that with, a lot of conviction. It sounds like she probably wanted him to, spread this around. This bill was not aimed at protecting women. It was wrapped up in the whole culture war to own the libs and to, make it look like it was some, oh yeah, we're so cool. We're going to dominate them. We're going to, get our way, screw these trans people, blah, blah, blah. Beating their chest, when they're literally hating on the most vulnerable among us. It's absolutely despicable. So then he says, B, biological males competing against biological females in sports. Testosterone is the ultimate fertilizer for muscle and bone growth. If you removed all of the testosterone from a male's body, the male has still reaped all of the growth benefits from any testosterone that has ever been put in the male system. Testosterone also increases blood flow and cardiovascular output, resulting in higher athletic performance. In order for the playing field to be level biologically between males and females, females would need to inject themselves with testosterone like a lot of female bodybuilders do, or take some other compound unavailable to their natural bodies with the same benefits as testosterone. Because of the biological athletic advantages that males have over females, HB 11 in 2022 aimed to prevent biological males from competing in women's sports. Rosemary voted against this bill. Jill thinks that to protect women and their opportunities, scholarships, colleges, etc., and to have a level playing field, males should not be allowed to compete in women's sports. So first of all, and I know this is mostly directed to schools, colleges, that kind of thing. But why should the government have a say in what is happening in a fucking sport? Okay, there are plenty of unfair things. Let's say I granted what you're saying. Oh yeah, it's unfair for trans women to compete against cisgendered women. Okay, let's say that's unfair. What the fuck should the government have to do with that? Why do you want government overreach? And then you're lying and you're saying the left. Oh, the left, they're the big boogeyman. They want big government. No, you want government in every sector of our lives. You want them to force women to bring a pregnancy to term, which was induced from rape. You think you could trust women to control their intake of semen, as your great Republican Representative Lisenby said. And you also want women to be on death's door before a doctor could provide, life-saving care. And even then, if the abortion bans went through, through the courts, even that, you're going to see a lot of OBGYNs, and by the way, Rosemary is one, leave the state. It's absolutely disgusting. Why do you want them involved in sports? And also, for example, when you see MMA, oftentimes it's matched based on weight. And I used to watch this YouTube channel called Street Beefs, and there's this guy, and they call him Baby Hulk because that he literally looks like Baby Hulk. He's small and short, or he's not small, but he's very short, and he has these big muscles and that kind of thing. And they match him up against other guys who are of the same weight, but they might be tall and lanky, and their muscles and their muscle mass is absolutely not comparable to this guy, so they just get destroyed by him. Do I think the government should step in and be like, oh no, you can't do that, that's unfair? Bro, this is absolutely ridiculous. And when you want to talk about scholarships and that kind of thing, look, you get scholarships based on your ability, okay? And oftentimes when you look at this, just being trans, that doesn't give you an inherent advantage. If it does give you an advantage, that advantage likely boils down to the same ways that a cisgendered woman could have advantages over another cisgendered woman. So let's say that they're stronger. Let's say that, they have a better physique that makes it so they have more endurance, or they're faster and that kind of thing. All of these things can be factored in, and you can match people to competitors that to make it actually fair. Okay, this kind of problem, oh yeah, trans women, they can be bigger and stronger. I mean, they can be, especially if they're not taking estrogen or whatever, or if they're not, you can still match it up and make it very much fair. I just don't know why the government should be involved in this. And like I said, scholarships are given based on ability. So instead of whining and crying that trans women could get scholarships and that kind of thing, why don't you just trust that, people, their talent will shine through and they will get scholarships? It just makes absolutely no sense. So then he says, this is about the whole pornography in schools. So schools, a few other school-related votes worth mentioning are A, pornography in school libraries, and B, discriminatory practices. So he says there have been a few bills aimed at removing and preventing pornographic material from being in school libraries. In 2022, there was HB 374, and in 2024, there was HB 29. Rosemary voted against both of these bills. Why she would be against removing pornographic materials from school libraries is puzzling to me. Jill Koford is in favor of making sure there are no pornographic materials in schools. So there is no fucking school in Utah that has actual porn in it, okay? Now, if they have, oh no, a woman's shoulder, oh no, her ankle was showing in it, oh no, they talked about the sin of having sex before marriage, whatever are we going to do? Yeah, welcome to reality. Then he goes into the whole DEI thing. Another bill in 2024 called HB 261. It prevents any government agency from hiring or treating people differently because of their race. Rather than telling any group of people that they could not succeed without a handicap, these bills aim to treat everyone as if they are capable of the same success as anyone else. Rosemary also voted against this bill. Jill Koford believes that it is racist to treat people differently based on their race, or to teach children that they are inherently different or even evil because of their race. Yeah, that's a straw man fallacy. No one is telling white children, oh yeah, you're evil because of your race. I'm the president of the College Democrats at Weber State University. Yeah, I'm basically as white as can be. I mean, I have curly hair. Thank you. Some people mistake me for being mixed or something like that. But no, I'm basically as white as I can be. I'm a European American, as someone could say. No one has ever. Maybe people who are terminally online, far leftists, might say, oh yeah, you're evil because you're white. No one is actually saying this, especially our great teachers in the state. So that is absolutely offensive and despicable that you would say that. And then when it comes to the DEI, when you look historically, and I'm a history major, so this is something I'm very interesting. When you look at, redlining, when you look at discriminatory practices, when you look at the studies which take into consideration employers and who they accept, when they look at a name which more often lends itself to an African American, for example, they are less likely to get hired. Okay, same goes for college admissions, and this is so hypocritical because when you look at, the people get admitted because they know, a member of the school board, or they know a member, the president of the university, or they are connected because they're in this whole kind of rich, circle of trust that exists and is so pervasive and is so exclusionary. That is all DEI is doing. It's not giving anyone any special privileges. We're giving them the privilege that has been denied, of them, and we're evening out the scores. Okay, we're saying these people have historically been discriminated against. Black people still, they have not, built up generational wealth because of issues going back to slavery. People whose families, have a long tradition in this country, yeah, their mommy and daddy may have had money, but if you are the son of an immigrant, if you are even the son of an immigrant a few generations out, like myself, and my family is pretty damn poor, you have not built wealth like many more privileged white people have. So it is very important that they have opportunities to jobs and that they, have a closer look taken at them, especially because of this notion and this, stereotype that maybe they're lazy or they're not reliable and that kind of thing. DEI is absolutely necessary, and there's so many reasons why, especially on college campuses. When you take out the funding for these communities that literally make people feel at home coming to campus from out of state or from foreign countries, and they come here and they want to, get to know, like-minded people on campus. They want to feel accepted, especially in Utah, which is an overwhelmingly white conservative state, it's an overwhelmingly white state. Let's hope after this next election it can at least say it's more purple. Against Utah being able to resist the federal government in 2024, SB 57 aimed to make it so that the federal government if the federal government wanted to force the Utah government to do something, that the federal government would need to sue the Utah government to make Utah comply. Rosemary voted against this bill. Jill Koford believes that Utah should have more say over Utah laws and policies than the federal government. So I kind of looked into this and I kind of wanted to share some stuff with you. So SB 57 passed in Utah's 2024 legislative session, and it allows the state to block enforcement of certain federal directives if they are deemed to violate state sovereignty. The bill empowers the Utah legislature to issue concurrent resolutions with approval from both the Senate President and House Speaker, as well as a 2/3 majority in both chambers. If such a resolution is passed, the state government can halt cooperation with federal enforcement on those matters. This bill reflects the anti-commandeering doctrine, which limits the federal government from compelling states to implement or enforce federal regulations. And this quote is from KSL. One example would be the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Good Neighbor Rule, in which states are being forced to curtail ozone emissions to cut down pollution that makes it to neighboring states. The rule affects Utah and 22 other states by mandating that the reduction of that drift. In June, the state filed a lawsuit against the Biden administration over the rule, vowing to fight it due to the ramifications it would bring, including what Utah argues is the premature closure of coal-fired power plants because of costly upgrades that would only shave a small slice of emissions. So I think they would probably consider really any fundamental change or reduction a small slice of emissions, and they don't care. Their great cult leader Trump, he thinks climate change is a hoax. He doesn't care. JD Vance in the vice presidential debate, he literally ended things off saying, "Oh yeah, we need this great energy. We need to mine and I don't know why I'm doing that deep voice. He doesn't really have one, but we need to do all these kinds of things with destroying our natural environment." This is exactly what the Republican Party wants to do, and this is a big reason why they wanted to support this bill and why Rosemary didn't. For example, on the environment, and this goes for way more than this, disturbingly, but, just to riff on this, the federal government owns a large proportion of Utah's geographical area because of, the Bears Ears National Monument, the Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument, and Trump severely cut these. I think the Bears Ears one went down to like 15% of its original size. A Grand Staircase, I think, was half. And the reason why they did this is because they want to extract oil and put methane into our atmosphere. They want to warm things up. They want to do things which actually worsen the hurricanes, which are happening and killing hundreds of people, stranding thousands, leaving people without power, without food, without water. Just absolutely disgusting things that are happening in the South, partly because of policies like these of not respecting our environment and contributing to climate change. This is why they wanted to, reject the federal government, because when the federal government is more progressive, when there's an EPA governed by someone who was appointed by Joe Biden, or after the next election, hopefully someone appointed by Kamala Harris, Utah government is so far right. They're like, no, we don't want these socialists telling us what to do. So that's why. It's because they don't want to protect the environment. And with how gerrymandered Utah is, with how far right the far right echo chamber of the legislature is, I trust the federal government more than the Utah state government, because they basically do whatever they want. There's a lot of dysfunction in Congress and that kind of thing. But even with and I'll say this, even with a Republican House and a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president, I still trust the federal government more than the Utah state government to manage that land and to make decisions about our environment and to make some of these big picture policies. And the most disgusting thing is this was, kind of inspired off of this whole thing that happened with Greg Abbott in Texas and them setting up razor wire, which, caused a woman and children to, get cut up and then drown, and their bodies were found, horribly disfigured and that kind of thing. And the federal government wanted them to put the razor wire down, as well as, some other measures. So they want to be cruel to migrants coming here looking for a better life. And in response to that, Utah says, "Oh, we want to jump on that culture war. Governor Cox, disagree better. Screw that. I just want to, own the left." So that is why they did this, and it's absolutely disgusting. And then when you want to talk about democracy, let's say there's a bill that says you cannot gerrymander districts, and Utah tries to use this. That infringes on our sovereignty. We want to gerrymander districts. We want to subvert democracy. And then they say, okay, well, we're going to uphold these maps drawn by the federal government. Like, for example, in, I think, a bill that was passed, I think it was for the People Act or something like that, which Blake Moore compared to the January 6th insurrection and Trump trying to overturn the election. A bunch of disgusting, things that come out of some of these federal Republicans, they could just say, no, we want to gerrymander these districts. Or, let's say in the future, Kamala Harris wins the state. No, we want Donald Trump to win. We want, we don't want to respect the will of the people. And the federal government, we're not going to cooperate with you. And we're going to basically potentially even start a civil war over that, because they will not accept when they are wrong. They will not accept checks and balances. This is why they are trying to dismantle the courts for, upholding obstructing their far right extreme abortion bans, which will lead to women dying in this country. So, and in this state, and in this county, and in this college. The last thing I want to talk about is election integrity. And I thought he would say, oh, yeah, well, we need all paper ballots or something. We need, this voter fraud, which, was pervasive, that making, George Soros and all them who, they're causing, these, election results and, these massive dumps of votes to be for Biden when they're actually for Trump, or, all these kind of, bullshit debunked conspiracy theories. But no, actually, and I respect that he didn't, dive into all that QAnon stuff. So he says in 2023, HB 365 aimed to make it so that one person cannot vote in more than one political party's primary election in 1 year. If all members of the Democrat Party, so I should have said this earlier, when someone says Democrat Party, they have exposed themselves as a partisan hack, and you should not take them seriously. This has been said by Republicans for ages, and it was popularized by House Speaker Newt Gingrich under Bill Clinton, who started using that and wanted it to be polarizing, and he wanted to be aggressive against the Democrats by saying they're the Democrat Party. So they're not associated with democracy or democratic values, which is actually very popular, at least, in some of America. Some of America, they want Trump, so they're very anti-democracy and for a tyrannical government, and they claim to be the party of patriotism when they're actually be more fitting to carry the flag of the Confederacy, which they actually brought into the United States Capitol. They did something the Confederacy failed to do, but anyway, they say the Democrat Party, they say this literally. They don't say it the way it's grammatically supposed to be stated, literally just to make them sound bad. It's like, how stupid is that? If all members of the Democrat Party wanted to influence the Republican Party's primary election, for example, the members of the Democrat Party could register Republican, vote in the Republican primary election, then affiliate back to the Democrat Party. Rosemary voted against this bill. Why would you be against people voting in one primary election a year unless you are interested in cross-party meddling? Jill Koford thinks that each person should only be allowed to vote in one political party's primary election. That's already the law, dude. Where does it say you can vote in both the Republican and the Democratic primary? No. And a lot of the time, these primaries happen on the same day. I mean, there's early voting and that kind of thing. You're saying you could vote, change your registration, and then vote again. There's already measures in place to make sure you didn't vote twice in the same election. All these primary elections, they're all, under the same thing. They're all basically one election. The county clerks and the people counting the votes, and my girlfriend who worked with Cache County to run their elections, make sure it runs smoothly. These people are doing great jobs, and they will prevent someone from voting twice in the fucking Republican primary and then voting again in the Democratic primary. What the hell is that? Okay, so that's just a conspiracy theory, and also that's not what this bill even did. He completely misrepresented it. So HB 365 in 2023, he says it prevented voting in two primaries, except this doesn't happen. That was the law beforehand. It's a straw man fallacy of the actual bill. And the actual bill, what it does is it limits the time frame against how close to an election you can change your party affiliation to influence the results of the other party's primary. So yeah, I mean, that sounds a little bit, more reasonable, but at the same time, with the far right legislature, I don't blame any Democrats who want to switch Republican and vote in the primary. I'm sorry. I do not blame them one bit. And if Republicans want to register as Democrat and do that, I mean, hey, maybe that will make it so, a more unelectable Republican will win the Republican primary, and then they'll lose to the Democrat, or they'll choose a conservative Democrat or more moderate Democrat, which can appeal to more people and actually win. There's many factors here, and I don't think that it's necessarily this huge issue. A few people, it's not like people are doing it in droves. At least I really don't think they are. And, letting independents vote in the primary, I think this is what Democrats do. Republicans have more of a closed primary, so you have to be a registered Republican to vote in it. And I'm sure this is in part upheld because they love Trump and they want to just have everyone in lockstep with Trump, which is why they hate Governor Cox and John Curtis, even though they still kowtow to Trump, especially Cox now. But they're not Trumpy enough, so that's why a lot of Republicans here don't like them, because you basically have to kiss his ass. So yeah, I mean, this isn't, this huge pervasive issue. It's especially not a bigger issue than these extreme abortion bans or anything that the Republicans actually want to implement. So I don't understand the whole making of this and the whole lying about it. And yeah, it's basically just a non-issue. So he says, this is what he ends it with. None of this is meant to be a personal attack on Rosemary, yet you're leaving it at random people's addresses who didn't even ask for this, basically bombarding them with a bunch of far-right misinformation. These are just some of the votes that she cast. If it were a commentary on personality of the candidates, I wouldn't be credible if I said that Rosemary is anything besides accomplished and personable. You're not credible. You are a far-right propagandist. Rosemary is a doctor and her schooling was paid for by the military. Funny how you put that. She was in the military. She was an OBGYN with the Air Force. Okay. She served our country. Her school was paid for by the military. That's such a patronizing way to put that. Okay. Put some respect on our military. I know your cult leader thinks that, the veterans are suckers and losers and that kind of thing. Put some respect on them. They served this country and they fought for your freedoms. Yeah, this is the party of patriotism, guys. What else? Rosemary has delivered many babies in the area, and that is a great thing. Yeah, you probably don't think that's a great thing because you want to make it so women will give birth even if their baby is about to die and they're on death's door, and then they'll die and possibly kill the baby as well. My thing is just that no matter how personable or accomplished she is in her personal life, her impact as a lawmaker is completely dependent on the way that she votes. We have a voting record that we can look at in isolation of her charismatic personality to know what we can expect her impact to be if she were to continue to hold the position. She is the only Democrat outside of the Salt Lake area. Okay, oh yeah, we're going to see her impact. What impact does she even have? You guys just want to flip the seat because you want even more control. You want no dissent. Okay, the only Democrat outside of the Salt Lake area, as she pointed out in the town hall, that's what, over 2 million people that don't have representation because of how gerrymandered the maps are. They don't have any Democratic representation. Do you think all 2 million of those people are not Democrats? And the way I said that was kind of funny. You think that none of them, could make up a Democratic district if it was in the right place? No, they just don't want dissent. They don't want to come together. They don't want common ground. They are tyrannical government overreach, period. So they just want more control. Although Jill Koford is not a doctor, or she, yes, he says, by the way, I found Jill Koford to be no less personable or accomplished. Although Jill Koford is not a doctor, Jill Koford started a business that has helped tens of thousands of women gain access to in vitro fertilization, IVF treatments, potentially resulting in babies that Rosemary has delivered. Oh, funny how you mentioned IVF when you support candidates and Donald Trump and Jill Koford who want to ban abortion and whose all that hard work they did resulted in a far-right Supreme Court being appointed by Trump and confirmed by Republican senators overturning Roe versus Wade, which then opened the door to restricting other freedoms, like Clarence Thomas said, contraception, gay marriage. And what we actually saw was in vitro fertilization was under attack in Alabama, and I believe it still is. So funny how you'd put that when your own party is against that. Maybe you should pass around a flyer saying how dangerous your own party is. Jill has started several small businesses, no less accomplished than Rosemary, just different flavors of being accomplished. She's a far-right extremist who's probably paying you or having you do this, or if you are doing this, dude, this is lies. Stop spreading around far-right propaganda. If you are interested in lower taxes, protecting women with far-right abortion bans, because we trust them to control their intake of semen, and keeping nonsense out of schools and the government, Jill Koford is who you want to vote for. Although supremely charismatic, Rosemary's voting has not been in favor of any of these things, so I think a change would be good. You think a change should be good? Wow. I believe you so much that this is just your doing. So yeah, I guess I never really showed you guys. I could show you that I actually have the paper that he left on my door and then ran away. Yeah, so I think that's it. If you want to join the Weber State Democrats, I'm not the only one that showed up today. No, everyone else was busy. It's fine, okay? And if anyone wants to hate on me because of that, that will just inspire more Democrats to join. If you are a student, or you have kids or grandkids, or you know anyone who wants to join the Weber State Democrats and come help us fight for a better future, make sure to let them know. So have a nice day or night, everybody.